Hi Conquers, I'm Dr. Radhika, MDS in prosthodontics. I have completed my senior residency from Government Dental College, Hyderabad recently. So today's topic is on bone grafts. So bone grafts is an important topic and also an interesting topic. MCQs from this topic can be covered in three subjects in perio, prosto, and also in surgery. So the many bits can be covered on this topic. So without any delay, let's start with the bone grafts today. So these are my contents I'm going to discuss today, that is regarding the bone grafts, definition, classification, indications, principles, bone biology, bone healing, biological mechanisms in bone grafting, and the types, that is nothing but a various bone grafts, procedures of the bone grafting in dentistry, and its complications and storage and handling of the bone grafts. So what is a graft? So graft is nothing but it's a material or a tissue that is used to repair a defect or a deficiency. So a surgical procedure that replaces the missing bone with that material from patient's own body, or some an artificial, synthetic, or natural substitute. That surgical procedure is called as a bone grafting. So what is the main purpose of bone grafting? So what is the main funda behind this bone grafting is, uh, bone grafts is an assumption that both the growth of the alveolar bone and formation of the new attachment would be stimulated because of using these bone grafts. Because some bone grafts have bone forming cells. Those are nothing but osteoblastic cells. Some bone grafts will just act as a scaffold, and some bone grafts have bone inducing substances, just like growth factors. So these are the that is the main purpose the bone grafts have been used. So there are different classifications for the bone grafts. So according to Nasser et al., the bone grafts can be classified as bone replacement grafts, can be classified as a human bone graft and bone substitutes. Again, in the human bone, we have autografts and allografts. So in detail, we have to remember different types of autografts, allografts, and their examples. So under bone substitutes, again, it is classified as xenografts and alloplastic grafts. So xenografts, these are the examples of the xenografts, and alloplastic grafts, hydroxyapatite, ceramics are the examples. So in detail, I will discuss about different types of grafts, that is autografts, allografts, xenografts, alloplastic grafts in further discussion. So let's come to the another classification. So grafts can also be classified based on its vascular supply. That is nothing but a blood supply. So those are vascularized bone grafts and non-vascularized bone grafts. And according to the structure, these bone grafts can also be classified as cortical cancellous and corticocancellous blocks. I mean, those grafts that are derived from the cortical area, and those are from like chin, skull, and body of the mandible. Cancellous is inner tibia, iliac crust. And corticocancellous are the blocks from the iliac crust. So according to the area of the placement, those are there are also big grafts like onlay grafts and inlay grafts. So onlay grafts are something where the graft can be placed directly on the recipient surface, on the outside surface, whereas inlay graft is placed in the inside surface of the recipient area. So those are called as an inlay grafts. And also bone grafts can be classified based on the material groups. Those are allograft based bone grafts and factor based bone grafts, where there are some growth factors inside the bone grafts, like tumor growth factors, platelet derived growth factors, and cell based bone grafts, and there are ceramic based bone grafts and polymer based bone grafts. So coming to the MCQ point of view, classification is not so important, but the types of the bone grafts is very important for the MCQ point of view. So we'll discuss the types of the bone grafts in detail in further discussion. Now let's come to the indications of the bone grafts. So where the bone grafts are actually used, as I said previously, graft is a material, something which is used to repair the defect area. That defect may occur due to the surgery, or it may be due to malignancy or due to trauma. So those come under indications again. So the jaw resection following some malignancy, extensive trauma, in orthognathic surgery as an onlay material, as a composite cartilage, and in large bony defects, in pre-prosthetic surgeries, and also in implantology. In implantology, when there is an inadequate height of the bone, then we'll lift the sinus in the maxilla. So floor of the sinus can be lifted, and there also the bone graft material can be used. And also, as we know well, in periodontal surgeries. So those are the indications of bone grafting. Coming to the principles of bone grafting. So what are the main principles? So those are preservation. We have to preserve the maximum number of osteoblastic cells in the bone grafts. So if the some of the grafts, as we said previously, that some of the graft consist of bone forming cells. Those are nothing but osteoblastic cells. If the graft has the bone forming cells, then we have to preserve it very carefully, and we have to deal with the graft very gently. So because any damage to the cells will leads to rejection of the graft, and it should be sterile, and we should ensure absolute immobilization and ensure adequate blood supply also. Vascularity of the blood of the bone has to be very well, so that it will be suitable to the recipient area, and it should contour well with the fit of the defects, and it should avoid contaminated sites. It should not be exposed, and these are the some of the principles of bone grafting. So before going to the types of the bone grafting and the examples under it, and so one must have a clear knowledge about bone biology and also bone healing. So as we all know, bone is formed with the osteoblastic cells. So these bone consist of osteoblastic cells, which will secrete the collagen molecules and also have the ground substance. So these collagen molecules will polymerase to form again collagen fibers. So the ground substance, calcium salts will be precipitated in the ground substance along with the collagen fibers. It will form the osteoids. So those will form the osteoids, and these osteoblasts become entrapped in the osteoid, and then they are called as osteocytes. Once the osteoblasts become entrapped in the osteoids, then they are called as osteocytes. So here we can see clearly in the image, this is the macroscopic structure of the mature bone, and this is the microscopic view. So coming to the macroscopic structure of the mature bone, these are the lamellae inside the bone, and as we said, the bone will have the bone matrix here. The bone will have the bone matrix, and this is the bone matrix. So this is the bone matrix, and these are the Harvation canals. This Harvation system is formed with the matrix and the ground substance embedded in the bone itself. So these osteoblast will be embedded in the matrix called as osteocytes. So those are called as osteocytes. These osteocytes along with the lamellae will form the Harvation system. It will form the Harvation system. So these is a macroscopic structure of the mature bone. When coming to the microscopic view, as I said, the bone will have different types of cells in it. We know that it has a osteoblast and also osteoclast. Osteoblast, the main function of the osteoblast is it forms a bone matrix, whereas main function of the osteoclast is it resorbs the bone. Coming to the other cells, which are the main stem cells of the bone, is nothing but osteogenic cells, whereas osteocytes, it will maintain the bone tissue. So this is roughly an idea to get the different types of the bone. That is, as we all know, bone is of two types: compact bone and also cancellous bone. So compact bone, again, it is composed of organic matrix in it, and also 30% of organic matrix and 70% of the calcium sulfates and phosphates. So with this, we can know that clearly maximum amount of the bone is covered with calcium salts and phosphates, which is nothing but it is in the form of a hydroxyapatite crystals. Whereas a cancellous bone in the image, you can see this is a cancellous bone, which is also called as trabecular bone. And this cancellous bone is spongy type of the bone where we can see the open area. So the vascularity will be more in the trabecular bone when compared to the compact bone. Compact bone is a dense bone. This is a compact bone. So as we can see clearly in the image, this is a compact bone. It's a dense type of the bone, whereas trabecular bone is a spongy type of the bone. So healing will be very fast in trabecular bone, that is spongy bone, because vascularity is more in the trabecular bone compared to the compact bone. And coming to the bone healing, so how does the bone heal actually? So bone, if there is any injury, there will be inflammation, right? So inflammation will leads to redness, and so the granulation tissue formation will be there. So because different types of the cells will invade in that particular area of the injury, and it leads to the granulation tissue. Later on it is replaced by the fibroblast and also by the osteoprogenitor cells. These osteoprogenitor cells slowly will these are nothing but a stem cells that forms the bone, so that will secrete the osteoblast, which forms the organic matrix of the bone. Hence it will get calcified. This is a normal healing of the bone. So what happens when in association with the bone graft, how does the healing will differ? So whenever the graft is placed, there will be platelet degranulation. Okay, there will be platelet degranulation. That once there is these are, suppose think these are the platelets. So after placement of the graft, there will be these platelet degranulation. So the platelets will degranulate, and they will release something called as growth factors. So they will release the growth factors. So growth factors are of different types of the growth factors, and there's a platelet derived growth factors and bone morphogenetic growth factors and tumor growth factors. So these all growth factors will leads to the mitosis of the osteoblast. Again, the division of the osteoblast will forms the mitosis, and along with the blood vessels it forms the osteoid production. So in this way the bone will heal. So this is immediate reaction whenever there is an injury, and there's a placement of the bone graft, then the immediate reaction will be the platelet degranulation. So this is the important thing. So there will be platelet degranulation. Later on the third day, the macrophages will take over the end, and the graft platelets will end. Whatever the platelets left in the graft will be ended, and now the macrophages will take its role, and then it will regulate the bone healing by stimulating some of the osteoblastic cells again. Again, in the second week, the bone undergoes complete revascularization. Now the blood vessels will be more in number, so it will be invaded and circulated by the stem cells, that is osteoprogenitor cells, which will invade the osteoblast cells, and it will form the osteoid production. So in this way, so the initial that is phase 1 bone will be formed after 2 to 3 weeks. So that bone is called as oven bones. Oven bone is nothing but immature bone. This is another MCQ where in some examinations they will ask immature bone is also called as, or else oven type of bone is mature or immature. So it is always an immature bone. So oven bone is an immature bone, first formed bone, and disorganized. It's always a disorganized bone, and incomplete mineralization will be there in that bone, and there will be an increased cellular activity. Okay, osteoblastic cells will be more, and in those because it's a newly formed bone, that's why. And coming to the after 3 to 4 weeks, from the 6th week, from 5th to 6th week, phase 2 bone formation will occur. Those is nothing but where the oven bone, whatever the immature bone will be there, it will undergo the lamellar compaction. So there will be increased number of, so there's an increased number of lamellae as I've shown in the Harvesian system. So there will be increased number of the lamellae, and along with the increased osteoblastic cells, it will form the lamellar bone, and that is something cellular bone, and it is completely mineralized bone, so it's organized bone also, so it can take up the pressure, whereas coming to the immature bone, it doesn't take up the pressure. So those are that is the bone healing when there is a placement of the graft. So now, what are the main biologic mechanisms in bone grafting? How does the bone graft consist of certain characteristics? So it it's like every bone graft doesn't have the similar property. Each bone graft will differ according to its properties. So let's come to the biological mechanisms in bone grafting. How does it differ? So how can we classify the bone grafts again? Based on its biologic mechanisms is something osteoconduction, there will be osteoinduction, and osteoconduction, osteoinduction, and also osteogenesis. So coming to the osteoconduction, um, coming to the osteoconduction. Now, what is an osteoconduction? Here, it's a biologically inert synthetic bone graft. So these osteoconduction, it doesn't have any bone cells in it. Okay, any bone forming cells, it doesn't have any bone forming cells, and it doesn't have any growth factors also. So, but it's just act as a scaffold. This graft material will just act as a scaffold for the new bone. So, as we can say that all graft materials can qualify as an osteoconduction, because each and every graft material can act as a scaffold, however. So, that is the main thing regarding osteoconduction. So the best examples for the osteoconduction is hydroxyapatite and beta tricalcium phosphate, bioactive glass, all will comes under the osteoconduction. Okay, because those grafts doesn't have any growth factors inside in it, and it doesn't have the bone forming cells even. It just acts as a matrix or a barrier. So almost all the grafts will qualify as an osteoconductor. Has a property of osteoconduction. When coming to the osteoinduction is these grafts don't have the ability to produce bone by themselves. Those they doesn't have the ability to produce a bone, but it induces the some of the host cells. So it will stimulate the osteoprogenitor cells. Okay, it will stimulate the osteoprogenitor cells, and because how does they stimulate the osteoprogenitor cells with the help of growth factors, as these grafts will have the growth factors such as bone morphogenetic proteins inside it, so it will stimulate it. So these grafts doesn't have the ability to produce the bone, means that doesn't have osteoblastic cells, but it has some growth factors which will stimulate the osteoprogenitor cells. That's why those are called as osteoinduction. Okay, coming to the osteogenesis is these type of the grafts which will comes under the osteogenic characteristic, or these grafts have the vital osteoblast inside in it. They have the bone forming cells. They have the bone forming cells, that is vital osteoblast. So they can form the new bone, that is the osteogenesis. So mostly autografts are only the grafts will come under this characteristic, whereas rest. So that is the only autografts are the only grafts which will have this osteogenic character. Now, those are the biologic mechanisms. One should be very clear with these properties, because many examples and many MCQs can be asked from these biologic mechanisms in bone grafting. So types, I mean, they will frame the questions as hydroxyapatite is a graft is a osteoconduction, or as osteoconductive, osteoinductive, or osteogenic, or none of the above. In this way, they will ask the question. So we should be very much clear regarding the properties of the bone grafts. and regarding the biologic mechanisms and the examples under it. Okay. Now, in brief, we'll discuss about the types of the bone grafts, that is autografts, allografts, as we have seen in the classification previously. So, what are the different types? So, autografts. So, what is an autograft? So, autografts is a grafts. Autografts is a graft where it refers to the bone tissue transformed from one side to the another side in the same individual. Means it is a nothing but same species and same individual is belongs to the autografts, nothing but self grafts. So they are harvested from one donor site and from the same donor site and has placed in the same individual the recipient site. So it's harvested from the same individual. So that is a autograft. So it's a considered as a gold standard because as we all know, if the graft has been taken from the same individual, so the antigenicity or rejection will be very less. So it's considered as a gold standard. And as I said, as these grafts always have the osteoblast and osteoprogenitor cells, hence it will satisfy the property of osteogenesis in the graft. So they will heal by the osteogenesis and site. So autografts can be taken from the extraoral sites and also intraoral sites. Extraoral sites, some of the examples are like iliac crust, fibula, tibia, like this, and rib, even rib. Whereas intraoral sites is mainly we'll choose from the mandibular symphysis and ramus area. Okay. So here in the image we can see clearly this is a autograft where it's harvested from the mandibular ramus area here, and here it's harvested from the posterior area crust bone. Okay. Now types of the autografts. Again in the autografts there are different types of the autografts. So autografts can be classified as osseous coagulum, bone blend, intraoral cancellous bone marrow transplant, and bone swagging. So what is bone coagulum? So this is an MCQ again. Bone coagulum is a mixture of bone dust plus blood. It's nothing but a bone graft. How does this bone dust will form? It's mainly with the round burst. The bone will be chipped into the pieces, and those smaller particles will be helpful for the additional replacement with the interaction of the cellular and also vascular element. So this is an MCQ where what is an osseous coagulum is a mixture of bone dust plus blood. So, and what is bone blend? So there are some disadvantages with the osseous coagulum. So there are some disadvantages with the osseous coagulum. So to overcome those disadvantages of osseous coagulum, so to overcome those, the bone blend was designed again. So here the bone mixture is placed in the plastic capsule and pistil, and it is triturated well. Okay. It is triturated in such a way it should be able to do workable and plastic like mass, so that it's easy to use in that form. So that is a bone blend. So bone blend is here it's blended very well in the autoclaved plastic capsule and also pistil. Okay. And coming to the intraoral cancellous bone marrow transplants, third type. Here it is nothing but that bone grafts can be derived or can be obtained from the maxillary tuberosity area, edentulous area, and also healing sockets. And what is bone swagging? It's the fourth type of the bone autograft. So what is the bone swagging? Here in the image we can say it's a technique. It's just a technique where it can be used mainly in the edentulous area existence. Here when there is a defect, and adjacent to the defect, if there is any adjacent to the defect, we can see here it's an edentulous area. So this bone is to be pushed into this defect area. In the second image we can see clearly it's pushed into the defect area without any fracturing the bone at its base. So that is mainly bone swagging is called as. Okay, that is bone swagging. It's a fourth type of the autograft. Okay. So what are the advantages of the grafts? So autografts, what are the advantages? As we all know, it has a less chance of graft rejection, and it satisfies the three properties of the biological mechanisms of the graft. It's osteoconductive, osteogenic, and also osteoinductive. And whereas the disadvantages, as it is taken from the same individual, so there is a necessity of second surgery even, that is additional surgical site. And coming to the allografts is derived from the human. So the difference is it is the same species but different individual. It's nothing but an allograft. Different. So it is the same species but different individuals. And the three types of an allografts again. That is a fresh frozen bone, freeze to dry bone allograft, FDBA. FDBA is an abbreviation for freeze to dry bone, dried bone allograft, and demineralized freeze to dry bone allograft. Okay. There are three types of an allografts. Again, we'll discuss about it in detail. This is a frozen bone. Frozen bone is something, the name itself indicates it is subjected to a temperature like minus 20 degrees to minus 70 degrees. And here the frozen bone, the advantage is it's simple to prepare and storage is very easy, but disadvantage is always the temperature has to be monitored. Okay, that is the thing. So the temperature you have to remember minus 20 degrees to minus 170 degrees centigrade. Okay, now what is freeze dry bone allograft? Freeze dry bone allograft is it involves freezing the bone. It's just similar to the frozen bone only. It has also have freezing, but here we are sublimating it into the vapor or in a vacuum. What is sublimation? Sublimation is where the transformation of the solid to gas directly without a liquid stage. So here we are sublimating it, the graft in the vapor and in the vacuum container, which will kill all the human cells and also lessens the antigenicity. Okay, that is the advantage of the freeze to dry bone allograft. So here in the image we can see these are the particles of the bone graft. These are nothing but a freeze to dry bone allograft. Okay, and what are the advantages? It's as I said, as it is subjected to the vacuum, and so it has a less antigenicity. And disadvantages, as it is more frozen and it is placed to particular temperature, it's a more brittle, and resorption of the graft is also more. Coming to the third variety of the allograft, that is demineralized freeze to dry bone allograft. Here the bone graft is demineralized in strong acid bath. So here the strong acid what we use is HCl acid, that is hydrochloric acid. 0.6 newtons has to be used of the HCl is used, and here it is again defeated in the ethanol and also chloroform, and thorough washing has to be done. That is demineralized. Here the advantage of this graft demineralizing in the acid is it will expose the proteins, growth factor, from which the growth factors will be exposed, which will those are nothing but bone morphogenetic proteins, which will make the graft to be osteoinductive property, to satisfy the osteoinductive property. Okay, so some of the not all the allografts are osteoinductive. Only demineralized freeze dry bone of the allograft are osteoinductive, as because the demineralization with the acid will expose the proteins, bone morphogenetic proteins or growth factors. Okay, advantage, it contains the bone morphogenetic proteins as I said, and disadvantages is infection rate is high, and the mineral content is completely lost because of the demineralization process. There will be high rate of resorption for this type of graft. And coming to the xenografts is different species. It's taken from the different species such as animals like bovine, which belongs to the cattle group, and also porcine like pig group. So advantages of the xenografts is it will undergo slower resorption, but main disadvantages there will be more antigenicity. Here the question can be framed according to the antigenicity. Which type of the graft is more antigenic? Always a xenograft, because it is taken from the different species. That's what. And here coming to the recent recent advance, that PepGen 15 is another type of a xenograft which is derived from the organic bovine matrix. It will mimic the type 1 collagen. It's another MCQ. PepGen 15 is nothing but it mimics the type 1 collagen. Okay, and there's another type of an alloplastic grafts. So we have completed with the autografts, allografts and xenografts. Now the fourth variety is alloplastic grafts, nothing but a synthetic grafts. So these are synthetic grafts and they may be, some of them are natural or some of them are Synthetic. So hydroxyapatite is a synthetic bone graft, and it's the most commonly used material in grafting procedures in dentistry. That's in perio surgeries or in prosto surgeries. So hydroxyapatite is a mostly used graft material, and as we all know, hydroxyapatite consists of mainly calcium and phosphate. Now coming to the synthetic variants, there are different types of synthetic variants of the grafts also, which are these days much more used because of its flexible properties inside in it. The silicon based bioactive glass, calcium phosphate, tricalcium phosphate, colla graft, all, and alumina ceramic, all will comes under the synthetic variants of the grafts, one type of the alloplastic graft materials only. Okay, now ceramic based bone graft substitutes, there are some of the bone grafts are ceramic based, which involves a ceramic, and it may be a combination or with another material also, like example calcium sulfate and bioactive glass even. And here these are some of the examples, and we'll discuss about the ceramic based bone grafts. And here the calcium sulfate is an osteoconductive graft material. It resorbs in 30 to 60 days and used as a synthetic bone graft for more than 100 years. It's a very old type of a graft, but it's still used in these days also. So it increases the volume of the graft material. And here it's another type of a graft material, synthetic graft material, osteoset. It consists of calcium sulfate dihydrate. You have to remember the compositions of the graft material. What does this osteoset consist of? Calcium sulfate dihydrate. It may be available in the form of a tablets, mostly pellets. Okay, and coming to the another type of synthetic material graft is allomatrix. Here allomatrix is nothing but osteoset previously seen, and it along with the demineralized bone matrix, it forms a putty or an injectable paste. Okay, and whereas what is calcium, in calcium phosphate also are different types, like tricalcium phosphate, synthetic hydroxyapatite crystals, coralline paste. Nowadays they are available in the form of paste, putty matrices, solid matrices, granules everywhere. So tricalcium phosphate is this, another name of the tricalcium phosphate is bitflockite. Okay, it's another MCQ, and it's available in alpha and beta forms. So here in the image what we are seeing is a beta tricalcium phosphate. Okay, provides the matrix material for the bone. And there are also these calcium phosphates is available in different forms. It's also available as a bio-os and also osteograft. So bio-os is a biocompatible porous mineral bone substitute, and due to its structure it's physically and chemically comparable to the mineralized matrix of the human bone. So it's more compared to the human bone. This is a bio-os. And another is a pro-osteon. It's a unique product based on the sea coral, because the advantages of these is it just appears a coral structure, which is nothing but which resembles a trabecular bone. Next, another is a bioactive glass. That's a bioglass, most commonly used material in the periodontal treatments, also called as a perioglass. Okay, what is the main what is the main of using this perioglass is this forms a double layer. Always when the graft material, the bioglass placed, there will be formation of the double layer of the silica gel and also calcium phosphate. So on these there will be absorption of many proteins. So there will be concentration of the proteins on this. So proteins used by the osteoblasts to form an extracellular, these proteins will form the extracellular bone matrix. Now coming to the polymer based bone grafts. Here polymer based bone grafts is, here the synthetic, natural and synthetic polymers were used. Natural and synthetic polymers, like they are again divided into degradable and non-degradable, and the examples of this is Halios and also Cortex. Okay, so this is the main table you have to remember. As I discussed it already, it's very important MCQ point of view. Autograft will satisfy the properties of osteoconductive, osteoinductive and osteogenic, whereas allografts only osteoconductive, and whereas demineralized freezed dry bone allografts are osteoinductive even. Okay, and they are not osteogenic. Whereas coming to the xenografts, are osteoconductive, and they are not osteoinductive, not osteogenic. Alloplast are osteoconductive, they are not osteoinductive, not osteogenic. So as I said previously, all the graft materials will qualify and will satisfy the osteoconductive property. Okay, whereas this differs. Osteoinductive and osteogenic will differ. Okay. Now, what are the applications of the bone grafts? Where we use these grafts commonly in the dentistry is in socket and ridge preservation. Socket and ridge, as we know, there are some defects in the, if there are any defects in the wall defects, then we can use the graft material. So there are 4-wall defect, 3-wall defect, 2-wall defect, and 1-wall defect. Here, if there is any 4-wall defect, so 4-wall defect means 4 walls are present. Always remember, 3-wall defect means 3 walls are present. 2-wall defect, 2 walls are present, in that way. If there are 4 walls missing 1 socket wall, then autogenous graft is preferred in such cases. Whereas if there is a 3-wall defect, that if the 3 walls are present, then autogenous graft can be used along with the allograft as a barrier. Okay. And when there is a 2-wall defect, then we can use a particulate autogenous graft, which can be secured with the help of the screws. Okay. When there is a 1-wall defect, then we can go with the autogenous block grafts. Okay. Block graft, these block grafts are derived from the chin or ramus area of the mandible, and they are used and these grafts can be secured with the help of screws. Okay, they are secured in the help of screws. In this way, they are used in the socket and ridge preservations, and they are used in localized ridge augmentation. That is, if there are any defect in the alveolar ridge resorption, then we can augment the ridge. If the defects can be, it can be horizontal and it can be vertical defects. So we can use the particulate bone graft in such areas, and also monocortical bone graft. So particulate bone graft, name itself shows that the graft will be in the particulate bone graft will be in the form of particles, whereas monocortical bone graft, whereas a chunk of the bone can be placed. Okay, and it is used in direct sinus lift augmentation, in sinus lift procedures also. So these bone graft materials can also be used in sinus lift procedures. So coming to the sinus lift procedures, this is a main, it's demonstrated by the Tatum, and here in a direct sinus lift procedures, here a full thickness of mucoperiosteum flap should be elevated. It will expose the lateral wall of the maxilla. So it is nothing but a modified Calva loop approach, where we'll expose the lateral wall of the maxilla and we will lift the sinus. Okay, we'll lift the sinus, and this place, the floor of the sinus and the sigmoid membrane, the place is filled with the graft material. As it's shown in the image, it's filled with the graft material in this way. So this is a direct sinus lift technique. Okay. Whereas coming to the indirect sinus procedures, here it is developed by Summer. Okay, it is developed by Summer, SUMMER. It is developed by Summer, where here it's a less invasive technique. If there is the bone has an at least thickness of 6 to 7 mm height, then we have to approach with this indirect sinus lift technique. Here directly the sequential osteotomy has to be done, and a crystal incision should be given, and an implant osteotomy has to be followed, and the bone graft material should be placed in the apical portion, okay, of the prepared site in this way. So only sequential. Here there is no exposure of lateral wall of the sinus. Okay, lateral wall of the maxilla. Okay. This is an indirect sinus lift procedures. And coming to the guides, also these graft materials can also be used in guided tissue regeneration. Guided tissue means entire tissue has been regenerated, like bone graft, like bone, PDL, cementum around the teeth has to be regenerated. What does this guided tissue regeneration helpful is? It will prevent the epithelial cells to migrate. So it will prevent the prevention of epithelial migration is a major function of this guided tissue regeneration. So all these grafts will prevent the epithelial migration. Okay, they will act as a membrane. Okay, these grafts will act as a barrier membranes. And there is also guided bone regeneration, where entire bone has to be regenerated. Here, the use of the membranes like graft materials, which will act as a membranes, will guide bone tissue formation by separating the underlying bone from overlying soft tissue, and by creating a space into which the desirable bone cells can migrate, and helps in the guided bone regeneration. Okay, this will help in a guided bone regeneration. As I shown in the picture clearly, see, we can see these is a barrier, is a membrane. It's nothing but a graft material which acts as a barrier membrane. Here it's allowing only the surrounding bone to secrete its cells in it. Okay, so only the osteoblast will be allowed to enter in this area, whereas it's preventing other cells to enter into this area, so that only the bone can be formed in that particular desired area. That is the main funda of this guided bone regeneration. Okay, now the membrane should be, as we all know, that membrane should be acceptable and it should be biocompatible. It should prevent fibrous connective tissue growth on it, and it should maintain the suitable space. That space has to be maintained always, so that that space should be maintained, so that the bone can be grown in that particular area. Okay, and the membrane should be capable of integrating with the adjacent tissues, and it should be clinically manageable. And there are different types of the membranes. Again, there are non-resorbable and resorbable membranes. These examples are very important in MCQ point of view for any entrance examinations. They may ask the questions from it, so should remember these examples under the non-resorbable membranes are expanded polytetrafluoroethylene and millipore, Gore-Tex, and rubber dam, silicone barrier type of membranes, titanium barrier membranes, all will come under non-resorbable membranes. Whereas resorbable membranes are, again, there are two types, synthetic and natural. So synthetic are like polylactide, polyglycolic acid, Vicryl mesh, and natural is collagen membrane. So one of the MCQ, this one. So natural resorbable membrane is collagen membrane. Okay. Now recently there are also some of the membranes containing metronidazole, and there are containing growth factors which will stimulate the osteoblastic cells. So that's why the growth factors are included in the membranes. And also use of enamel derived proteins, that is MD, that is emdogain. Emdogain is a protein that is derived from the porcine teeth. So it's approved by the FDA. So this is obtained from the porcine teeth. So this is one of the important MCQ, emdogain. Okay. Now we have to remember what are the advantages, disadvantages of the non-resorbable. As we know, it's easy to use, it can be stabilized, and space making will be good in this non-resorbable, because they are tough, they are thick enough, and they have good the elastic properties in it. So whereas coming to the disadvantages, high complication rate and infection will be more, and second surgical procedure is very much required. This is an important step. Second surgery is required because it's non-resorbable. Where these are the examples, as I said, Gore-Tex, Cytoflex, T membranes, that is titanium membranes. These are titanium mesh. This is also non-resorbable membrane. It's a very rigid membrane, and it provides elasticity. But the main disadvantage of this titanium mesh, it will irritate the surrounding tissue, surrounding mucosa. Okay, that's the main disadvantage. Coming to the resorbable barrier membranes, or it's a advantage of this is ease of use, no removal required, so it's less expensive, and fewer complications. Coming to the disadvantages, it's less predictable. Sometimes these barrier membranes are resolved with the help of enzymatic actions in the body itself, but they may resolve very fast sometimes. So the space maintenance is not much more in these resorbable barrier membranes. And what are the complications of bone grafting is mainly infection. Rejection is a main complication because failure to take up the graft material, resorption and alterations in dimensions, exposure, movements or resorption of the graft, and also recipient bone. So how to store this graft material is storage medium. Saline is always a good storage medium, and temperature, it should always be in a freezed temperature, and it should be sterile, and handling should be very gentle. Any trauma of the bone handling will leads to the damage of the osteoblastic cells, and it may leads to inflammation, rejection of the graft, entire graft. So this is a summary, coming to the summary of the graft material. So for the success of the bone grafting, always the properties of the graft material should be maintained till the end of the till the end, because it's all depends upon the cells. The cells should be sufficient in number. It's not only the host in the graft material graft, but also in the recipient tissue bed should be very much sufficiently have the vascularity cellular supply, so that it can maintain the self remodeling bone. So any damage or any inflammation in that particular recipient site may leads to rejection of the graft itself. So one should be very much clear for the grafting procedures. During the grafting procedures, proper care has to be maintained right from the diagnosis till the end of the treatment, like diagnosis, treatment planning, careful execution of the surgical treatments, post-operative follow-up, all are very important in achieving the success of the bone grafts. So with this, I am going to end my class, Pankaj. So many MCQs will be asked from the bone graft materials. It's a memory based topic, so please concentrate on the MCQs of a relevant topic, that is bone grafts, and stay positive. Thank you.